What if I told you that one decision you make today could determine whether you spend your retirement enjoying complete financial freedom
Or worrying about money every single month? What if I told you that this decision has nothing to do with earning a six-figure salary, owning a successful business, or inheriting wealth from your family? The truth is,
most people spend their entire lives chasing more money without ever learning how wealth is actually created.
and that's exactly why millions of hardworking people reach retirement with far less than they expected.
My name is Nick, and on this channel we explore practical financial strategies that help ordinary people build lasting wealth. If you're interested in making smarter financial decisions and creating a more secure future, consider subscribing and join our growing community. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that two people can earn almost exactly the same income? Yet 20 or 30 years later, one enjoys financial independence, while the other is still living paycheck to paycheck?
Why does that happen? Most people immediately assume it's because one person was simply luckier. Maybe they found a better job.
Maybe they invested in the right company. Maybe they inherited money. Sometimes that's true,
But most of the time, the real answer is much simpler. It comes down to habits, small financial decisions, repeated over thousands of days. Think about your average month.
your paycheck arrives. You pay your bills. You buy groceries. Maybe you order takeout a few times. You replace something that wasn't really broken. You subscribe to another streaming service. You buy something online because it was on sale. None of those purchases feels expensive. In fact, each one seems completely harmless. But here's the problem. Money rarely disappears through one giant mistake. It usually disappears through hundreds of tiny decisions that never seem important in the moment. That's exactly how millions of people spend decades working hard without ever becoming wealthy.
Here's something that may surprise you. According to numerous financial studies, a large percentage of adults couldn't
Comfortably handle an unexpected emergency expense without borrowing money or using credit.
Think about that for a moment. Years of hard work, thousands of hours spent earning an income.
Yet one unexpected expense can completely disrupt their financial lives. This isn't only happening to low-income families.
It's happening to people with respectable careers, college degrees, successful businesses,
And incomes that appear impressive from the outside. The problem isn't always how much they earn.
The problem is that every dollar already has somewhere to go before it even arrives. Today's culture encourages spending at every opportunity. Every advertisement promises happiness through another purchase. Social media constantly tells us we're missing out. Companies compete for our attention every second of the day. Buy this, upgrade that, treat yourself, reward yourself, enjoy life today. Very few voices encourage patience. Very few remind us that today's financial decisions shape tomorrow's lifestyle. That's why so many people confuse looking wealthy
with actually becoming wealthy. Driving an expensive car doesn't necessarily mean someone is financially secure.
Living in a large house doesn't automatically make someone rich. Owning luxury products doesn't guarantee financial freedom.
Many people spend years trying to appear successful, while quietly falling deeper into debt. Real wealth looks very different.
Real wealth is having choices. It's knowing you can handle unexpected problems without panic.
It's having investments that continue growing while you're sleeping.
It's reaching retirement without depending entirely on government benefits or another paycheck.
And here's the best part. Building that kind of wealth doesn't begin with $1 million. It begins with a decision.
A decision to stop allowing every dollar you earn to disappear. A decision to think differently than the average person.
Because once you understand how money actually grows, you'll realize something that most people never discover. Your income is important, but your financial habits are far more powerful. And that's exactly where our journey begins. Why most people never become wealthy. Now here's the question that changes everything. If building wealth is possible for ordinary people, Why do so few actually achieve it?
The answer isn't intelligence. It isn't education. And it certainly isn't luck.
The biggest difference between financially successful people and everyone else is how they think about money.
Most people see money as something to spend. Wealthy people see money as something to multiply.
That single difference changes every financial decision they make. Imagine receiving an extra $1,000 today.
What would most people do? Some would buy a new phone. Others would book a vacation.
Many would upgrade something they already own. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your money.
But here's the problem. The excitement from spending rarely lasts. A new car eventually becomes just another car.
A new phone quickly feels ordinary. A luxury purchase that once seemed exciting soon becomes part of everyday life.
Psychologists call this the hedonic adaptation. Human beings naturally become accustomed to almost everything they own.
The excitement fades. Then they search for something new, something bigger, something more expensive.
And the cycle repeats itself, over and over again. This is exactly why so many high-income earners still struggle financially.
As their income increases, their lifestyle expands at exactly the same speed. A bigger paycheck leads to bigger monthly payments.
A nicer apartment, a newer vehicle, more subscriptions, more expensive vacations.
From the outside, everything looks successful, but behind the scenes, nothing is actually changing.
Their income is growing, but their wealth isn't. Now compare that to someone who thinks differently.
Instead of spending every raise, they invest part of it. Instead of upgrading their lifestyle every year, they upgrade their future. At first, nobody notices the difference. Both people drive similar cars. Both earn similar salaries. Both appear equally successful. But 20 years later, the difference becomes impossible to ignore.
One person owns liabilities. The other owns assets. One still depends entirely on their next paycheck.
The other has investments producing income every single day. This is why building wealth is less about mathematics
and more about behavior. Your financial future is shaped by the choices you repeat, not the choices you make once.
Every month, you have an opportunity. You can spend another dollar. Or you can give that dollar a chance to create even more dollars. Most people never think that way. They ask. Or you can give that dollar a chance to create even more dollars. Most people never think that way. They ask.
That question has quietly created millions of financially independent people around the world.
Because wealth doesn't begin when your salary increases. Wealth begins the moment your money starts working harder than you do.
And in the next part, you'll discover why time is the most valuable financial asset you'll ever own.
And how one simple principle has quietly created more millionaires than almost any other strategy in history.
The power of time that most people ignore. Let's talk about the one thing that money can never buy.
Time. You can always earn another paycheck. You can always find another opportunity.
You can always recover from financial mistakes. But you can never recover lost time.
And that's exactly why time is the greatest advantage any investor can have. Most people believe wealth is created by investing large amounts of money.
In reality, wealth is usually created by giving ordinary amounts of money extraordinary amounts of time.
Think about planting a tiny seed.
On the first day, nothing changes. A week later,
you still see almost nothing. Even after several months, it may seem like all your effort has produced very little.
But beneath the surface, something incredible is happening. The roots are growing deeper.
The foundation is becoming stronger. The tree is preparing for decades of growth. Investing works exactly the same way. The first few months rarely feel exciting. The first few years often seem slow. Many people become impatient.
They look at their investment account and wonder if it's even worth continuing. That's where most people quit.
Not because investing doesn't work, but because they expect results far too soon.
Here's the truth. Compound growth is almost invisible in the beginning. It starts quietly, slowly, almost unnoticed. But every return your investments generate becomes new money that can generate even more returns.
That's when something remarkable begins to happen. Your money starts earning money. Then the money your money earned
Starts earning money too. It's like rolling a small snowball down a mountain. At first,
It barely changes. But with every rotation, it collects more snow. It becomes larger, heavier, faster. Eventually, the snowball becomes impossible to stop.
your investments follow that exact same pattern. During the early years, you're building momentum. During the later years, momentum begins building wealth for you.
This is why experienced investors rarely panic when progress seems slow. They understand something beginners often don't. The biggest rewards usually arrive near the end of the journey, not the beginning.
That's why patience is far more valuable than excitement. The people who become financially independent
Aren't necessarily those who discover the perfect investment. They're the ones who simply refuse to quit. They stay consistent, month after month, year after year,
through good markets, through bad markets, through uncertainty, because they understand one powerful truth.
Every month they continue investing. They're buying something far more valuable than another investment. They're buying time, and time is the one asset that quietly turns ordinary decisions into extraordinary results. That's why the best moment to start wasn't when the market was perfect.
It wasn't when the economy was stronger. And it wasn't when you had more money.
The best moment was the day you decided your future was more important than another unnecessary purchase.
The second best moment is today. Because every month you wait is 1 month of compound growth you'll never get back.
And in the next part, we'll explore why wealthy people think about money completely differently than everyone else, and how that mindset quietly shapes every financial decision they make.
The mindset that separates the wealthy from everyone else.
By now, you probably understand something most people never realize. Building wealth isn't only about money, it's about the way you think. Because long before someone becomes financially successful, they begin making different decisions. And those decisions all start with a different mindset. Most people ask one simple question every time they get paid. What can I afford to buy? It sounds like a normal question. In fact, almost everyone asks it. But wealthy people ask something completely different. They ask, how can I make this money produce even more money? That single question changes everything. Imagine two people receiving exactly the same bonus at work. The first person immediately starts thinking about spending it. Maybe it's time for a new television, a luxury vacation, a designer watch,
Or upgrading a perfectly good car. None of those choices seem unreasonable. In fact, they're exactly what most people would do. Now imagine the second person. Instead of asking what they can buy, they ask what this money could become over the next 20 years. Suddenly, the same bonus looks completely different.
It no longer represents another shopping opportunity. It represents another investment, another asset.
Another building block for their future. That's the difference. Average consumers focus on today's happiness.
Successful investors focus on tomorrow's freedom. Here's something interesting. The wealthiest people don't always earn the highest salaries, but they almost always make better financial decisions.
Why? Because they understand one important truth. Every dollar has a job. If you spend it, its job ends immediately. But if you invest it, that dollar can continue working for years, even decades. Think about that for a moment. Most people spend their entire lives working for money.
The wealthy slowly reach a point where money begins working for them. That's one of the biggest financial transformations anyone can experience.
And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through hundreds of ordinary decisions. One investment, one contribution.
One smart choice after another. Here's another mindset shift. Successful investors don't see saving money as losing something.
They see it as buying something much bigger. They're buying freedom. Freedom from financial stress. Freedom from living paycheck to paycheck. Freedom to retire with confidence. Freedom to choose how they spend their time. That's why investing no longer feels like a sacrifice. It becomes an investment in their future lifestyle. Now compare that to someone who spends everything they earn. Every new purchase creates temporary excitement, but eventually, the excitement fades, the payment remains, and another purchase takes its place. It's an endless cycle, one that millions of people never escape. The wealthy break that cycle by changing one simple habit.
Instead of rewarding themselves with more possessions, they reward themselves with more ownership. Ownership of businesses.
Ownership of assets that continue growing year after year. And that's why their wealth quietly expands while others remain financially stuck.
Because the greatest difference between rich people and everyone else isn't usually the amount of money they earn.
It's the way they think before they spend. Once that mindset changes,
Everything else begins to change as well. And in the next part,
the simple strategy that can change your financial future. So, where do you actually begin? This is the point where most people get stuck. Not because investing is complicated, but because they believe they need to know everything before taking the first step. They spend months watching videos,
reading articles, comparing different investment strategies, trying to find the perfect moment, the perfect stock,
the perfect opportunity. But here's the truth. Perfection has destroyed more financial futures than bad investments ever have. Because while people are waiting for the perfect moment, time continues moving forward. And time is the one thing no investor can afford to lose.
The people who build wealth don't know everything. They simply start. Then they continue. Month after month.
Year after year. That's the secret. Consistency always beats intensity. Imagine two people. The first invests a small amount every single month for 20 years. The second waits 10 years, planning to invest much larger amounts later.
Who do you think has the advantage? Most people assume it's the second person. After all, they're investing more money, but that's rarely what happens. The first investor gave their money something far more valuable: time. Every contribution had years to grow, years to compound, years to produce more returns. The second investor may contribute more money,
but they can never buy back those lost years. That's why wealthy people stop asking, "How much should I invest?" Instead, they ask, "How soon can I begin?" Even a modest investment started today can become surprisingly powerful over time. But a perfect investment delayed for years often produces far less. Now here's another lesson successful investors understand.
They automate their success. They don't rely on memory. They don't rely on motivation. And they certainly don't rely on willpower.
Instead, they create a system. Every month, before they spend money on entertainment,
before shopping, before unnecessary expenses, they invest first. Why?
Because they know something important. If you wait until the end of the month to invest what's left, there usually won't be anything left. That's why the phrase, "Pay yourself first," has become one of the most famous principles in personal finance.
Your future deserves to be treated like your most important monthly bill, not your last priority. As the years pass,
something incredible begins to happen. You stop measuring success by the things you own. Instead, you measure success by the freedom you're creating. Watching your investment account grow becomes more satisfying than buying another expensive gadget. Seeing your net worth increase becomes more exciting than upgrading your lifestyle.
Because you've finally discovered something that millions of people never understand.
Every dollar has two choices. It can make today a little more comfortable, or it can make the rest of your life more secure.
The people who achieve financial freedom simply choose the second option more often than everyone else. And that one habit, repeated over decades, can completely change the direction of an ordinary person's life. Now there's only one question left. What happens when someone commits to this strategy for years, refuses to give up?
and allows time to do what it has always done best? That's exactly what we'll discover in the final part.
The decision your future self will thank you for. As we come to the end of this conversation,
I want you to think about one final question. 5 years from today, 10 years from today, or even 20 years from now.
what kind of life do you want to be living? Do you want to continue worrying about every unexpected expense?
Wondering whether you'll ever be able to retire comfortably? Hoping that somehow everything will work out? Or do you want the confidence that comes from knowing you've spent years building a stronger financial future? Because that's what this has really been about. Not stocks, not investment accounts, not numbers on a screen. This has been about freedom. The freedom to make choices without fear. The freedom to say yes to opportunities. The freedom to help your family when they need you. The freedom to retire because you choose to, not because you have no other option. Many people spend their entire lives believing that wealth belongs to someone else. To entrepreneurs, to celebrities, to people born into fortunate circumstances. But history tells a different story. Countless ordinary people have built extraordinary financial lives. Not because they were smarter, not because they were luckier, but because they were willing to stay consistent when everyone else was chasing shortcuts. Remember, building wealth isn't about making one perfect decision. It's about making hundreds of good decisions over time. Choosing to invest instead of impulse buying. Choosing patience instead of instant gratification. Choosing your future instead of another temporary pleasure. Those choices may seem small today, almost invisible, but years from now, they become impossible to ignore. One day you'll look back at this moment. You probably won't remember every number we discussed. You won't remember every example. But I hope you'll remember one simple truth. Every dollar you invest today is a vote for the future you want tomorrow, and every month you delay is another month of opportunity that can never be replaced. The perfect time will never arrive. The economy will never feel completely certain. There will always be another excuse, another expense, another reason to wait. Successful people aren't those who waited for perfect conditions. They're the ones who started anyway. So don't ask yourself, what if I fail? Ask yourself something much more important. What will happen if I never begin? Because doing nothing has a cost. And over the course of a lifetime, that cost can be enormous. Your future isn't determined by where you are today. It's determined by the decisions you make after watching this video. One decision, one habit, 1 month at a time. That's how financial freedom is built. If today's video helped you see money from a different perspective, make sure to subscribe and join us for future conversations about investing, building long-term wealth, and creating a retirement filled with confidence instead of uncertainty. Leave a comment below and tell us one financial habit you're committed to improving this year. And remember,
The goal isn't to become rich overnight. The goal is to become wealthier every single year. Because the life you've always imagined
doesn't begin with $1 million. It begins with the decision you make today.